Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerica show. We're going to be chatting with Terry Tibando here in a few minutes. But first, how's it going tonight, Graham?
Hey, Darren. Doing pretty good, buddy.
Yeah, last interview in the igloo.
This is our last one in this location. Yeah, we're moving down the road.
Moving house.
Moving house and studio.
Yep, it's a big move.
So tonight we have Terry Tibando with us, as Darren mentioned. Terry's been the coordinator of CSETI Vancouver since the early 90s, and that's when I first met him. And he's not just sitting around on the couch. He's been out there practicing protocols to make contact with whoever is piloting this aerial phenomena. Now he's just about finished a book. It's a textbook of sorts on UFOs and contact, which we'll be getting into in great depth here. And we're really looking forward to hearing about your experiences in Grimerica tonight. Welcome, Terry.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. Good to see you again, Graham.
Yeah, you too. It's been like 20 years.
You guys have been, your paths have come back across each other after 20 years.
Yeah, we got to get you back out with us again. And, with the weather being kind of like it is, the off and on rain and some of the cool evenings, it makes it kind of hard to do anything. And yet sometimes the best field trips that we've had have been in crappy weather. And sometimes it could be overcast, it could be cool, and we may have to bundle up for that. Usually we try not to go out when it's too wet because obviously equipment gets wet as well and possible damage, and it kind of demoralizes the spirits a little bit, but
Yeah. I'm surprised we didn't cross paths in the UFO Vancouver meetup group because just before I moved to Calgary, I started going to the UFO meetup group, and then shortly after I moved here, I noticed you were attending there. So we almost bumped paths there, but that was always a fun group to hang around with.
Yeah, I went to one meeting out of curiosity, and I guess I was going there to network to see who was there, and the thing was that I went in with basically my T-shirt on with my CSETI on it, and immediately I got kind of pounced on by 2 or 3 guys, and one of them, or at least 2 of them, were abductees, and I thought, oh, okay, because I don't buy into the abduction, but they said, oh, CSETI, that's Dr. Grier's group, blah, blah, blah. We really don't think he's really knows what he's talking about. Well, I beg to differ. And the thing was that with the meetup group, it brings out a lot of eclectic types of personalities.
Oh, yeah.
And so I kind of anticipated that. And I said to the guys, because they were really getting into it, and this went on for about a good 15 minutes or so. And I was saying, hey, we're really here to listen to this other fella. We really should end our conversation and let's hear what he has to say, right? And I tell you, it was a real gong show. But the thing you may not know is I'm also an assistant organizer for Meetup.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Yeah, and so my main function is really just to promote CSETI and CSETI Vancouver.
Yeah.
And that's basically why I got involved in that.
Yeah, it's good to be around some like-minded people, though. See, we don't even have a meetup group about UFOs in Calgary yet. So Vancouver's definitely way ahead there.
Well, the thing is, from what I can tell, is that they put, like, the Meetup is a sort of an international body and an organization. And if you go into their website, you can basically follow along and you can start something up. Now, normally they'll ask you for, I think it's a $11 or $12 or $13 monthly.
There's a small fee to
I don't pay anything, and not because I'm an assistant organizer, because I don't advertise. The only way I'm advertising is I put something on their website, and I come up with my own little logo and put out whatever information I need to put out to attract people. And I've had all kinds of people phone me up, email me, so there's obviously an interest there. And it's very easy for anybody to do. It just takes a little investigation, a little bit of finessing, and yeah.
Well, it's good you're using some of that social media to arrange meetups. I mean, that's how I found out about Meetup, actually, though, is through the UFO group. Because I bumped into those UFO guys at the planetarium once, and they told me about this Meetup thing. And now I use Meetup to find all kinds of other interesting things like meditations or whatever, other like-minded people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as I say, it's whatever kind of interest that you have, and you definitely do find the like-minded people, and it's surprising who comes out. I mean, everybody right across the whole strata of society, whether they're willing to admit that they're a doctor or a professor or this or that, they do show up to some of these events. I got one fella who's a professor, and I believe he teaches mathematics and physics, and he comes out, and he really wanted to start his own organization, but I don't think he got anybody showing up. And I think he wanted it as a very top-end, very high intellectual group of people. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that he could still attract those types of people. But the thing is that a lot of us are really coming from the everyday walk of life. And these are the people that get involved in any kind of UFO organization.
Yeah. So I wonder how I even found, I'm sure I heard of CSETI through
Weren't you
back
doing it
in
with
'94.
your laptop or something?
What?
Weren't you using your laptop to
back
power?
then?
Yeah.
No, I don't know how I would have. I probably found out about you guys through a conference, because Vancouver had a couple conferences back then. There was some crop circle stuff. I remember Colin Andrews being there around, and I might have even seen Greer at a conference or something. But I definitely think that I found out about CSETI and started my adventure there through.
I seen your card.
Yeah, I got the card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think there was websites and stuff back then.
Or one of your own?
No, one of yours, I think. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, as I was just saying prior to the beginning of your show here, is that I got involved back in '92. I've actually had experiences since I was a child. Mm-hmm. Since I was about 5 years old, and that's over 60 years ago. So I'm dating myself. I'm 65, and
you don't look a day over 35.
Hey, right on. Well, the thing is, I do try and look after myself, keep myself in shape. I've got 10 years on Greer. And the funny thing is that we both have had similar experiences. And as I say, my experiences go back since I was 5 years old. Now, I'll get into that aspect a little later, but I'll tell you how I got involved in CSETI. And that is, I had a UFO sighting in the Pitt-Coquitlam area. Mm-hmm. And I saw an object going by near the mountain, and it was one of these overcast, cloudy days. But this was probably no more than 300 or 500 feet off the ground. And I was actually a janitor at a school district then. And as I was taking the garbage out to the dumpster, I looked across and I saw this sort of white object move across the parallel with the mountain range underneath the cloud layer. And I realized, okay, that's not a plane. I don't hear any sound. And I went through the mental game of what it is and what it isn't. And I realized that, that the ETs were still around. I was still seeing them or their craft. And it just sort of reawakened that curiosity and interest again. So I decided to do something I never did in my life, and that was to contact someone who was involved in an organization to give them my report. So I was flipping through the yellow pages, and I found a couple of UFO organizations, and one of them was called UFO
BC?
UFO Research Network. I think that was Euphoric or Euphoric. And anyways, long story short, was I phoned this number, but it was an automatic answering service. But he was playing tapes of various UFO topics and paranormal type topics. And I listened to these, and I found them very interesting. In fact, I was probably wasting more time listening than doing my work. But the thing was that I always got my job done at the end of the evening. But eventually I got through to this person, and I made a contact with him. And his name was Lauren Goldfeather. And we met. Now, one of the things about his telephone, I guess you would call it messaging service, was these programs that he played. And I heard somebody who was very eloquent say something about UFOs, and he said one or two things that I immediately caught on that only I and similar other people would have caught it. And that was that he said things like that this was an event that was really ushering in a 500,000-year dispensation of involvement on this planet. And I knew exactly what he was talking about and where he got that reference from. And one of the things that I realized was he had to be a Baha'i, as I was a Baha'i. Mm-hmm. And so I found out his name was Dr. Stephen Greer. I got that through Lauren, and we started going out together and doing a couple of field trips. I got in communication with Dr. Greer and the CSETI organization, and we communicated back and forth for a while. And that was probably in early 93. So you could say that by 93, the formation of CSETI was underway. Even if it was just the two people, Lauren and I. And so we would go out, and one of the first times we went out was out into Pitt Meadows. He lives in Vancouver, so I picked him up at the bus terminal, and we went out and spent an evening out there. And immediately we got out there, we had something fly over us, a very bright light. Now, was it possibly a satellite or even the space station? It may have been. Mm-hmm. But it seemed very serendipitous for it to have shown up when we were out there.
Mm-hmm. Fast walker kind of stuff.
Well, it wasn't really fast. I would say it probably moved slightly faster than a satellite, but not much faster. And very, very bright. And because it was very bright, I come from a family where my father was a military in the Air Force. He was a corporal in the Air Force. And so I'm a military brat. And I have a lot of experiences being around airplanes and stuff and jets. And so I was able to start recognizing some of these craft, these airplanes that would go over. And my brothers and I would build model kits of airplanes when we were younger. So we were pretty much indoctrinated into that thinking. And so when I see something, as I say, I go through the game of what it is or what it may not be, and I rule out all the conventionalities of things that can fly. And then if it doesn't fit any of them, then whatever is left over, using the sort of Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes method of deduction, has to be what it is. That's how I kind of look at things.
That's what my sighting was, actually. I thought it was a satellite. It was in the early evening, sun still up. I thought it was a satellite, and then it like changed direction, and that was my big sighting.
Yeah, did it move sort of sharply to one path to another, or? Yeah,
it was going west to east. West to east, and it was probably about 5 o'clock or so, maybe 4 or 5 o'clock, and the sun was kind of down. It was still quite bright out because it was summer, but we were on the back of the house, so the sun was blocked. And we were there was 3 of us looking up, and we seen it. We thought it was a satellite. We were talking about, we look at the satellite, and then
it did some turn.
It headed, maybe changed its course, maybe 45 to 50 degrees to the north.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a significant turn.
And then disappeared.
Well, one of the things that we try and do with CSETI is we try and get people used to the idea of not only going out and looking up into the sky to see the stars and recognize constellations and planets and that sort of thing. Be aware that there might be an occasional shooting star or meteorite flashing through the atmosphere. But what we try and do is also look at things that may appear that are very normal, but appear under unusual circumstances. And satellites sort of fit that description because there are some satellites, the Iridium satellites, that will go over, and at a certain point where you are located and where the sun is and the rotation of the Earth will suddenly flash.
Yeah.
It's very, very bright. Now, the thing is, some people will mistaken those as possible UFOs, and that's not to say that some of them are UFOs, because they will also do that. The other thing is, though, what you're going to look for with a satellite is a constant movement, say from north to south or from east to west, or some form of trajectory that is at a constant pace. A UFO, on the other hand, may appear to be a satellite and all of a sudden stops, or all of a sudden makes a turn right or left, may approach closer, may seem to zoom out further away, may suddenly disappear out of sort of into thin air or into thin space, as it were. And so, you start to look at those things, and you have, one of the things is that you want to have satellite charts. So you can look at some of these satellites that do come over, say, the Vancouver area, and there's a lot of them.
There's actually an app for that nowadays. Have you ever heard of the Sputnik app for iPhone?
No, but I do have, there's a number of ones that I have on my iPod, and they're essentially to do with planet location. They do like universe sky safari is one, planets, moon phases, all those kinds of things. And then I have one that's CSETI ET contact, and that's one that I'm trying to get people to take a look at. If you've got an iPhone or an Android phone, you can download that. I think it's something like just under $5. But what it does is it allows you to turn your
phone into an instrument, really.
Yeah, it's like an electronic instrument where it's like a magnetometer, and it will pick up readings, right? So, for instance, it will start to click if there's a high electromagnetic field in the area. You can actually wave it in front of people, and what will happen is sometimes you'll get electronic field around that person. Well, what that really indicates is there could be an ET amongst that person. And if you're in a group of people, you can go around the circle, and what you find is, I see that you've got it there.
Yeah. We've been talking about this app on the show a little bit in the past, so I've downloaded and I'm starting to play around with it.
I'm 46. Is that good?
I don't know. You see, I've only got an iPad, and so it doesn't quite get.
Oh, you're setting my thing off here, Terry.
Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely hear it squealing there.
It's going up. It's going up to 100.
Yeah, that's probably because I had it too close to the microphone there.
Here, let's see if I go.
I think it must be just because I'm holding up to the computer screen and it keeps going up.
Yeah, you're gonna be picking up
Wi-Fi or something.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're gonna be picking up a magnetic field from some of your equipment there. So ideally, when you're out in the field and you're using this type of equipment, and there's other, I can hear that. So you want to be in an area that doesn't have any microwave towers and all that sort of thing, because when you are sitting in a circle and you're going around from person to person, and this is what they call a sort of a pre-check on the environment and the situation in general.
Like a baseline, kind of setting a baseline kind of thing?
That's right, because sometimes the ETs have already arrived and they're just waiting for you to show up. and they know roughly where you're going to be. Now, the thing is, when you go around the circle and you point your iPhone at them, you're picking up the reading. There may be nothing and nothing and nothing. And all of a sudden, the third person you go to, there's a reading. Now you want to kind of figure out, do they have any electronics on them or that sort of thing? And then you may find you go to the next person, nothing, and then the next couple, all of a sudden they get the same kind of reading. So what that could be saying is that there's an ET presence. Now, that by itself is not conclusive. Because when you start to go into and the whole CSETI thing, I don't know if anyone's actually talked to you about this on your show. But,
no, we haven't. We should do the rundown for sure. Yeah.
Okay, well, let me give you that fairly quickly here. The CSETI, of course, what we're using is we're establishing what they call the CE5. Which is the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which is human-initiated contact. And that human-initiated contact is where humans go out and they use various modalities of communication to try and contact and reach ETs that may be out in space or in the general vicinity. And part of that is using lights, sound, and mental thought. The lights could be in the form of lasers, laser pointers, high-powered candle floodlights. I have a floodlight that's 60 million candle power, and it's really quite bright. It's something you could probably fit onto a helicopter and look down below and see what's below. I use a laser pointer. Now, I've got one that is temperamental, but essentially when it is working, it has a 10-time extender on it, and it's a big foot and maybe 15 inches long. It's quite long, and it puts out a beam. But when you put the 10 times extender on it, what it does is it softens the beam, but it allows you to project the beam 10 times further. So if you're getting, say, 6 to 10 miles that the light can be seen, the laser light can be seen, it will then reach 60 to 100 miles. That means you can point it up into space, and if there's an extraterrestrial vehicle flying by, it will spot that. Now, again, by itself isn't a guarantee that you've actually are going to attract the attention of ETs. And so we're using beeps and tones that have come from either recordings of crop circles, audio recordings that is, or from UFOs that have landed. And there's a number of these that we use. And what we do then is we put them into a ghetto blaster or onto our iPhone, iPad, or whatever device that we have that can record and play it back. And then we broadcast it through a walkie-talkie. So then that can then be spread out. Yeah, that's the sound. That's one of the sounds, one of the beeps. And the interesting thing about it, go ahead and play that. Just let the audience sort of hear that.
So that's the sounds you play in the field?
Yep. Now, one of the interesting things is this particular recording will get slower and slower, and because it's played at full speed, half speed, quarter, eighth, 16th, that sort of thing. And as it gets slower, you'll find out that it sounds like the heartbeat of something.
Yeah.
Now, it will go a bit slower than that, and it'll go boom, 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 boom.
Cool.
It should be, I think it's coming up here shortly.
Do you amplify it at all?
Yeah, it's coming across to me very clear.
No, I mean like if you're in the field.
Well, yeah, you're going to be broadcasting that. So essentially, then it goes through a walkie-talkie. Now, the thing is, there are different versions of this beeps and tones, and one where there is a pure trilling or thrilling, trilling wavelength, and then others are slower. So what we're doing is we're giving back to the ETs something that's theirs that they would recognize. Somebody had said to Dr. Greer, "How come you don't play Beethoven or Mozart? You know, some nice piece of music or a little bit of rock, for instance." Well, I'm sure that some of that might actually be interesting, and maybe some of the classics would be some kind of indication that there's intelligence down here on Earth. But the reality is that it may not be something that they fully understand. And let's be realistic here. We're broadcasting everything under the sun in all various forms in electronic wavelengths, whether that's TV, radio, the internet, our cell phones. So all that is going out into space, right?
Yeah.
And if there's intelligent life out there, which I have no doubt, they're picking that up. And if you remember the movie Contact with Jodie Foster, who played the astrophysicist, basically she'd go out and she'd listen for the various signals, and what she got back was a signal. Now, in the beginning of the movie, it shows all these, you can hear all these noises and what have you. And when they get the contact, the signal back, they find out it's the image of the first games, modern day games of the Olympics. And the image was of Hitler, and the Germany was the host of the Olympic Games. This was prior to the war. So it was a bit of a shock for them. Well, the thing is, what it is they sent back something that we sent out to them that we would recognize. In like manner, we're sending back to them something that they should be able to recognize, which is their own particular noises of beeps and tones that have come from crop circles or from their spacecraft.
Yeah, and then it also must make it seem like we acknowledge, or at least acknowledge their existence or their presence.
That's exactly it. It's an acknowledgement. Now, what that is an indirect form of communication. And you're going to find that there's various levels of communication that can be established with ETs. But the next modality is the thought or meditation, and essentially through higher forms of consciousness, which are achievable through meditation, we get the group to quiet down their own thoughts and allow their minds to become still and at peace. What this does is this allows everybody to harmonize, to synchronize, because there is power in numbers. This is synergy. And some people are very, very good at it individually. Others are better at it when they come together with other people. So you're sending out you're establishing a greater boundary of awareness. And that awareness allows you to start to tap into the depth and consciousness of the universe and to other ETs. And the premise here is that sentient life is everywhere, and that the universe is alive, as is the earth, as is all manner of things, whether that be plants, animals, obviously people, rocks, etc., etc. Everything has a field of energy. It has a spirit or an energy to it. And so ETs have basically the same sort of sentience and consciousness as what people have, which therefore allows us to make a contact with them. And it's like for them, because they're receiving all these signals, when they receive a pure thought, a pure intent coming from a group of people, that's like a big spike that would appear if you had a graph. And that's what they're tuning into. And so the thing is, like in the movie Contact, when they're looking at the signal and they get this big spike that shows up, and they try and locate that, that's what ETs are doing. So there's a bit of a similarity there between what ETs can do and what humans can do. But ETs are far more advanced than we are. They're probably thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even millions of years ahead of us. So one of the things that they can do is their societies are built on what I call higher forms of consciousness, where everything interfaces with that, including their technology. So they have conscious-assisted technology or technology-assisted consciousness, where the electronics or whatever form of mechanical, electrical, magnetic forms of energy can interface with the human or with their own particular consciousness. So they can, by pure thought alone, operate their
spacecraft.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so when we're doing that meditation then, and we're reaching out with consciousness to expand our awareness around us and around the earth, then what we're doing is trying to make sure that our consciousness is sort of everywhere. And it is, because there's no locality of consciousness. It's non-linear. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that when we get to that stage, what we're going to then be doing is remote viewing, which is another part of the meditative stage of communication. And that is that when you are meditating, and meditation is really the key to all the psychic abilities. Mm-hmm. And if people were to learn this at a very young age, say at school, along with math and science and reading and that sort of thing, and art, and learn this as well, we would find by the time we reached adults, we would be using our minds and consciousness to such a high degree that all of a sudden there would be a bloom in science that would suddenly leap forward by quantum leaps. And consciousness, which Dr. Greer says will be the new science of the new age. Mm-hmm. And this is part of it. So when you're in that state of consciousness, you're remote viewing. And that remote viewing is to be able to see at a distance, which we used to call clairvoyance. And in that
I like that.
mind,
they should have stuck with that. That makes it sound sexy.
In that state of mind, essentially then you're looking around. You're actually visually seeing around with your mind's eye. Mm-hmm. What is out there in the universe? What is around the planet? What is on the moon, on Mars, on Saturn, whatever these places. The old shaman of various tribal societies and cultures used to do this all the time. The shaman and witch doctors of the Aborigines in Australia used it. The North American native people and their shamans used it. It is a well-known method to reach beyond the physical boundaries and into the boundaries of the universe. And they used to do this all the time. Mm-hmm. And when they were able to do that, they were able to also create healing because they were tapping into a certain power. And that power is always through us and in us and around us at all times. And when you tap that, you're tapping into information. So when you remote view, you're looking for ET craft or ET civilization. When you find it at that point, you then do what we call coherent thought sequencing. And that is being able to show them where you are located by showing them, first of all, when you're going out into space, you're visualizing, preferably you're seeing it, but you're visualizing the spot where you're situated amongst the group. Mm-hmm. you're looking at, say, the valley area or the mountain area, or it could be a desert area, wherever you are located, you can see that. And as you further and further out, you can start to see more of the country and the continent. And you can tell whether it's east or west, whether it's nighttime or daytime, whether the lights are turned on all the cities. On the west coast here, you should be at this time of night start to see all the lights show up. You should be able to see the North American west coast. You can see Vancouver Island, which is sort of between the 40 minutes parallel, which is between center of the North American continent on the west coast. As you move further and further out, you see the Earth. And then as you move further and further out, you see the moon and the Earth, and you may be able to see the sun. And then if you move further and further out, you may come across Mars and the asteroids and Jupiter and Saturn and all the other outer planets. And the further you move your consciousness out, you should be able to pop out through the solar system and out through the nebulous clouds that are around this area and out of the arm of the spiral of the Milky Way. Now, at that point, I can see this as I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
As you, and the reason why I can see it because my background when I was going to university was astronomy, and I used to see a lot of these books, and I used to look at them, and then I used to do this remote or this coherent thought sequencing. So I had a visual image in my mind of where we were, and as you move further and further out, you're into deep space. You can keep on going at that rate ad infinitum. It never ends. But at some point, you want to stop and be at peace with the universe, to see the universe, to soak it all in, and then do the remote viewing, and then do the coherent thought sequencing, which is the invitation to the ETs that you may have established in a contact with. Now, you may not see them, but it's possible to still communicate with them. So what you're going to do then is show them in reverse order where you came from by going back into the spiral arm, back into the solar system, past the planets, towards the Earth, towards the continent you're at, and to the location on that continent. That's coherent thought sequencing. It's not meditation. It's a separate thing. Yeah. And that was something that was developed by Dr. Stephen Greer back in, I think it was 1976 or 78. And when he was a teenager, he actually had an experience where he went on board a craft. And essentially, he met with ET beings. They took him off planet. And together, they developed this protocol of the CE5 initiative, which is how do you communicate with ETs. And essentially then from that point on, he and the ETs developed this. They were actually curious because about him because he was into meditation in a very strong way.
At a young age, yeah.
At a very young age too. And very adept at it. And he actually went to India and learned transcendental meditation. No, in fact, he learned transcendental meditation from one of the Maharishi yoga schools in the States. That's where he learned it. And he became a teacher of that while he was also learning to be a doctor of medicine. So the thing that was that the ETs were curious to know what it felt like for a human to meditate and to that level or to that state or degree that Stephen was able to achieve. Now, Stephen is rather a unique individual because he's been doing this so long that it becomes secondary to him.
Yeah.
So without digressing too far off the topic here, we got the protocols and the meditation and that type of training from Stephen, and that's what CSETI is all about, is training people to go out and do this on their own without Stephen.
Yeah. I have a question about the coherent thought sequencing. Assuming that a lot of times when you're doing this, you're in a group of people. So you project you meditate together, you start remote viewing, you're sort of seeing whatever in the universe. Somebody comes across ET out there. I can imagine in my head everybody sort of following the breadcrumbs back in kind of like a a mixed up way? Like, does somebody guide you back as a group verbally, or do you all just sort of make your way back through meditation on your own?
Well, that's a good point. It's a little bit of both. Normally, when I take a group out, I like to, at least for the first meditation session, to have everybody just listen to a recorded either a DVD or tape or something that's being recorded off of your iPhone. That is the meditation by Dr. Greer.
Yeah, I've listened to that one, and that's on the app too.
Yeah, and he's got a number of them. Yeah. And so basically by listening to, when I got involved, I listened to one of the original ones that he used to do where he had Sherry Adamak, and she was his assistant before Linda Willits joined in with CSETI. Unfortunately, Sherry passed away. I did have the opportunity to meet her. She passed away, I think, in 97. And unfortunately of breast cancer. But the thing is that he and Dr. Greer would do the meditation, and he essentially led the meditation. And if you listen to his voice, he would therefore guide you through the steps, so that would allow people to understand what was taking place. And then when you were out in deep space and just at ease and at peace with the universe, and then you begin your remote viewing by looking around, he would then say, okay, when you have politely asked the ETs to come on board their craft or to come and visit them on their planet, you want to show them where you are. But then that's when the coherent thought sequencing would start, and he would guide you back through that. Right. So once you understood the process, then it was easy for anybody to do this on their own. So even though you're in a group, he said, okay, we'll do a silent meditation. So you may be doing this meditation 2, 3, 4, 5 times, 6 times in an evening. That's a lot of time spent meditating. But you could be meditating anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes to half an hour because you really are trying to reach out and make contact. And this is rather unique on the planet because there's very few people doing this. And so when ETs do get a strong signal of mental thought coming at them from some humans, they're going to investigate it. So we've got some interesting cases, not personally, but historically in the UFO community, where people like Sicto La Paz, who is a Brazilian, started doing this actually before even Dr. Greer was doing it, or at least roughly around the same time. And he would have UFOs suddenly show up after he had meditated. And he realized it was his meditation that was inviting them. And so he had friends and family, and he would take them out into a valley or an area. And he says, you want to see me bring down the ETs? I'll do this. But first of all, we have to all meditate. So they'll all meditate, and they would do this. And actually, they would practice before they would go out, maybe at his home or a friend's home. And then they'd go out and do this. And every time they went out and did it, boom, an object would show up, and sometimes it looked like it was going to land, or it would be off in the distance. And what it was doing was it was gauging the receptivity of the group. Now, Dr. Greer has also had that experience and has gone much further with it than anybody else has done. And so what he's able to do now is to literally formalize this into a process where it's called the CE5 initiative, which is Human Initiated Contact, where we are peacefully trying to communicate in a mutually beneficial and sustainable effort or relationship. And that when we are doing this, we're really saying, hey, we want to be friends. We wish to have an association with you. We want a relationship that's mutually beneficial. And recently, since the 90s, Graham, when we did this, it was more or less, let's go out and make contact. Now it's evolved to the point where we not only try and go out and have contact, but we're asking the extraterrestrial intelligence to assist us in the healing of this planet. Because if you look around us, there's so much chaos and problems in the world that we really do need help. It seems as if things have gotten beyond the ability of the average human or even the average government to control. And so we're saying to the ETs, help us bring about an era of peace on this planet. We're not asking you to do it for us where we sit back and reap the benefits of it, but we're saying, look, help us, assist us to do that. And by doing so, open up the hearts and minds of people and make them more receptive to things that are more positive and beneficial, as to being more separate, secluded, more personal, more greedy, more material, this sort of thing. A lot of people talk about that we've entered into a new age since 2012. The reality is we've been in this new age for the last 170 years. And we just haven't yet woken up and recognized the source of where that's coming from. As a Baha'i, I know exactly where that's coming from. That spiritual awakening has been already been going on amongst the Baha'i world community. Now, I'm not going to get into talking about my religion per se and everything else about it, because that's not what this forum is about. But what I'm getting at is there are people who have been doing this for 170 years who are already awake and attuned to the day and age in which we're living in. So when people say 2012 because of Mayan calendar, I'm going to tell you something. That's just if you ask the Mayan, they'll just say it's another day in the year, or another year in the many years. It's not a specifically special event. Now, there are still people saying, well, 2020 is going to be a significant year, and 2024 is going to be significant, and 2040 is significant. But the reality is all the years that we live in are significant.
I want to ask you a bit in a bit about how it's changed since the 90s till now. But before we do that, I want to go back to something you said about that guy in Brazil and how the ETs are discerning the receptivity of the group. So are you saying then that you guys have experienced this too, where it kind of comes down to the weakest link, or not, I don't want to say weakest, but let's say you have non-believers or skeptics or people that are out there with not so pure intentions. Will that affect the contact experience of the group?
Oh, certainly. The thing is, it sometimes does boil down to the weakest link. And quite frankly, this is why I prefer to meet with people before taking them out into the field, because to a degree of their preparedness for the unusual will gauge the level of response from the ETs. Wow. So if an individual's never had this sort of experience before, knows nothing about meditation, I would suggest to them, take some time and learn how to meditate. Do this on your own, preferably, but we will also show you how to do that. Read up on some of the things that are out there, some of the books on UFOs and the various theories and all the rest of it. Listen to some good documentary films or video or DVDs. There's a lot of stuff out there. Now, the problem is there's a lot of garbage out there. Mm-hmm. And so an individual who's trying to get himself prepared to make contact with ETs is going to be coming on a preferably non-fear-based level. No sense of negativity towards which ETs are good or which ones are hostile, that sort of thing. We're asking that any and all ETs show up. We don't care if they're hostile. In fact, Dr. Greer will say to you that if there are ETs out there who are malevolent, those will be the first ones I want to meet. And the reason for it is, like any country who has a diplomacy with another country is trying to establish a relationship that's friendly, beneficial, and mutual, and ideally peaceful. And so it is a lot easier, say, for the United States to have a relationship with Canada and Britain, because we share a lot of commonality with them, with language and weights and measures and the forms of democracy that we have and all those sort of things. And because Canada is just north of the border from the States, there's that, relationship that we have. So we have to establish a peaceful relationship. Otherwise, we'd always be at war with America. Well, if you're a country like Iran, Korea, Russia, China, those kinds of relationships are going to take more time in order to achieve the same kind of relationship that you have with some of the friendlier nations like Canada and Britain or France or Spain or wherever. So they require more work. Well, in the same fashion, the individuals have to kind of prepare themselves for this, which is achieving a certain state of mind. So when you go out in the field, the response that we get from ETs is gauged upon the weakest person there. It's also gauged upon the strongest individual. For instance, a lot of people want to be able to go to some of Dr. Greer's Ambassador to the Universe retreat sessions, and they last about a week. The reason being because Dr. Greer is like a magnet for these types of events that unfold. ETs and UFOs do show up and they interact. Well, there's a lot of people who go out there who are looky-loos. I want to see I want to see something because I've never seen it before. I want to see an ET, I had a friend, you maybe remember him, this was Brian Greer, no relationship to Steve.
Yeah. And his wife, Roxanne, you said, right?
Roxanne. Yeah. And unfortunately, he's passed away. But the thing is that we used to have these long conversations where he would phone, and 2 or 3 times in a week we'd be gabbing away like we're talking right now. And he wasn't what I would call of any religious affiliation. I think he was a spiritual man. But his whole premise was, I want to go over and kick the tires on this thing. When it lands, I want to know it's there, right? Yeah. and I think deep down in all our hearts, I think we all feel the same way. But I had to tell Brian, I said, look, it may never, ever come to that, at least not at this point. I said, a lot of other things have got to unfold before that ever happens. And, we'll get a lot of high strangeness going on, which will be a prelude to other things down the road, whereas we become more open and receptive as a group, or any group that's doing this, the ETs ramp it up that much higher. So the level increases. And the thing is, they're teaching us something. Again, I'll refer to another movie, Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where they go to Devil's Tower and the military and the scientists have set up a camp or base there, and the ETs show up and they play the tones, right? It's somewhat similar to what we're doing, but there's a science to that, and basically one of the scientists says, this is the first day of school. They're teaching us how to communicate, learn the alphabet, right? Well, that's really what's going on here. But it's going on multiple levels. So again, talking about another movie, Contact, you remember when they finally get the information, it was the industrialist, so I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he said
McConaughey?
No, it wasn't McConaughey. It was the English actor Hurt. I can't remember his character's name. But anyways, he says, the message that we're getting is on multiple levels. Oh, yeah. That's what we've got to understand. It isn't saying, hi, how are you? Shake your hand, pat on the back. Yes, welcome to the planet Earth. Let's get down to business. No, it's operating on a lot of different levels. It's happening on a psychological level. It's happening on an emotional level. It's happening on an intellectual level. It does happen on a physical level. It's everything that you can possibly imagine. There is some forms of mathematics and physics involved in this. And part of that is trying to crack that particular nut, because that's what the scientists are after. They want that purity of the science and the math that goes behind this. Whether or not it's there or whether or not they'll ever get it, I don't know. But that's the level. So when Stephen Greer had his contact and all-planet experience when he was a teenager, he essentially, I asked him, and I kind of knew the answer before I even asked him. And I said, so when you had the communication, were they communicating on emotional, intellectual, spiritual? He said, yeah, all of that. Mm-hmm. All of that. And I knew that I was right. I was right on. I knew that I sometimes have an intuitive knowledge. I don't know where it comes from. But and there are things that I do read and that I have to learn. But some of it is intuitive. And on this particular aspect, I knew that that's the answer he was going to give me.
Mm-hmm. The multiple level thing.
Multiple level, yeah.
Can you talk about any of your CSETI Vancouver experiences? I remember I wasn't with you guys for very long, and it was back in like 94, so it was probably less than a year or something like that. But I remember missing a few experiences and you guys talking about some of them. But
yeah. By 95, everything was starting to gel. Now, this is part of the thing about group dynamics is when you get a group together, you're trying to sort of find out who's really serious and who isn't. Mm-hmm. And as I say, you get a lot of people who are looky-loos. You get people coming in who are very much fear-based. They fear certain types of ET beings, what are known as the Greys or the reptilian or the reptoids. All of this is nonsense. This information that's out there in the public is junk, disinformation, and it's designed to create negativity and xenophobic fear towards certain ETs. And so the thing is that when you are trying to contact, you're trying to contact every or any ET, not just a particular group of people or a group or a racial group. They're going to be ones that are probably the small, short gray with the large eyes, or they're going to be whitish color. They're going to be some very tall ETs. I've seen tall ETs out of the corner of my eye, and they're tall. They're about 6'6" to at least 7 feet high, minimum. Mm-hmm. There are short ones. There are reptilian ones. There are things that are so strange that you wonder what is the process of creation behind them. How do they function? How do they even survive or live or do what they do? Mm-hmm. And that's to be expected. That's what we, I think, in real science would look at as being truly alien or extraterrestrial. There is what I call a universal law, standard, or constant, which says that many intelligent forms have a humanoid appearance that is similar to humans.
Yeah, like a bipedal type evolution.
2 arms, 2 legs, a head, 2 eyes, a mouth, possibly a nose, possibly some ears, fingers on a hand, 3 fingers, 4, 5, 6, whatever. Feet, maybe 3 toes, 4 toes, 5 toes. Some of them look like us. In fact, the ones that are humanoid really scare the bejesus out of the military because they have no way of telling if they're here or which ones are who, because they may have already infiltrated a lot of the top positions in government, in the military, and the intelligence. And my hope is, I hope they have, because that will make sure that the ones that don't have, the people on this planet who don't have our best interest are kept in check.
Yeah, but you could also say the opposite, where we're going to hell in a handbasket here, and if they're in some positions of control, they're not doing a very good job.
Yeah, but then here's the thing. This is, again, Dr. Greer talks about this, the Manichaean point of view, which is us versus them. This whole concept of we're good, they're bad. And so
what about we're bad, they're good?
Well, that too. I mean, it's the same thing with the Nazi Germany. pointing at communists and at Jewish people, that they were bad, that they needed to be eliminated or at least rounded up and segregated away from the rest of society. Purity of race sort of thing. I mean, this can get, we don't want to be taking these kinds of negative attitudes that we have developed over the last 6,000 to 10,000 years and start dumping that onto ET and putting them into the same basket as what we are at. We have to grow up on this planet. And this is part of that change that is occurring. People are beginning to awaken. So the thing is that when we're out there and we're doing this, this is part of the attitude. Now, an actual event in 95, as I said, we were starting to gel as a group. And I realized, as the coordinator of the CSETI Vancouver group, that we were really beginning to harmonize. That we were going out, we were going through the routine, we were learning as we were going, and so it was a hit and miss. But all of a sudden, we got a call from Dr. Joseph Burks, and I don't know if you remember him at all. He came up from Los Angeles, and he was one of Dr. Greer's senior team members. A friend and I went down to Seattle, and I met up with a lady who was also from Vancouver, and together we talked to Dr. Burks, and he suggested if we could put together something in the way of a presentation, like a talk, maybe a radio interview, and maybe even put together an afternoon session or an evening session. He would teach us how to do the CSETI protocols, the whole 9 yards. And so that was, I think, in 90, that was about 94, 95. And but come the fall of 95, in October, we had this call from the Discovery Channel. They wanted to do a piece on us, and what they had been doing was running around the country and into the States interviewing people. And they had interviewed Dr. Joseph Burks, and he said, well, look, I don't have time because of my practice to show you how this is done. But if you contact Terry Tibando up in Vancouver, who has a CSETI group, he'll show you. So Dr. Burks gets on the phone and says, by the way, Terry, you got this group of people showing up and they want to interview you.
Nice.
So I scrambled. But the thing that was interesting was as the day approached when they were going to be in town, some of us started to pick up some kind of intuitive information that the ETs were going to show up as well. And we couldn't quite put our finger on it, but we knew something was going to happen. And we met up at Cypress Mountain with the Discovery TV crew. Now, prior to that, we were meeting at a restaurant just to make sure everybody was there that was going to be there. And then we all went up to Cypress Mountain. And we met up with the TV crew. There was one fellow on camera, another one doing the interview, and I think there was a third doing something with the mic. I think that was what he was doing. And anyways, as I'm being interviewed, and it's still twilight, it's not dark yet, we're up in that large parking lot where the ski chalet is.
Yeah.
And as I'm talking and I'm looking southward, there's a ridge just in the distance, but not about a half a mile away, less than that, actually. And there's a cross-country chalet there. And the actual ski hills are off on the left, which is from where I was standing, Cypress Mountain, just to give you an idea of where everything is located. Whereas I'm talking to him, I see this white object pop up over the ridge and come down roughly into where the ski chalet is, across from the parking lot and across the valley area. And we're watching this, and as I'm talking to him, I could hear two young ladies that had shown up who weren't a part of our group. And as it turned out later, we found out that one of them was an abductee, and the other one was somebody who was helping her to overcome her.
Wow.
Right.
That's a bit of a coincidence.
Yeah, and they said, look, do you see that over there? And I was looking at this. The TV crew don't pick up on this, right? They're still busy talking to me. And as I'm talking to them, I'm also thinking, now, do I tell them to turn on and point their cameras at this? Or do I go for credibility? I also had an intuitive knowledge that ETs have a sense of humor. And I thought, okay, if I tell them to turn around, they're going to probably disappear anyways, right?
Yeah.
So I said, I thought to myself, I'm going for credibility. The moment I thought that, boom, the object went back over the other side of the ridge and disappeared. And I thought, darn, that was the wrong decision.
Maybe not. I mean, who knows?
Maybe not. But the thing was, they were recognized. People in the group recognized them, but the TV crew didn't know about it. We kept it to ourselves. Nobody in the group told them. We didn't say, "Did you see that UFO?" Because they probably said, "Yeah, right."
Yeah,
exactly. But the thing is, we went through our demonstration of setting up the equipment, doing the meditation, all of that stuff, the light signaling. But as we're doing it, people were getting a high sense of presence other than themselves. They were seeing flashes of light around in the area. And they felt very strongly that the ET presence was still there. Well, after a couple of hours almost of doing that, we packed up the equipment. We thanked the TV crew. We asked them how much of it they were going to use. And they said, well, we won't know until we look at it, and then we have to edit it down. So what was probably nearly 2 hours got reduced down to maybe about less than 30 seconds.
Yeah, of course.
But as we were leaving the parking lot and we were going down Upper Levels Highway into, I guess it's West Van, we were going to meet up in the park. I think it's a Park Mall, or there's a white spot there.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. The mall by the bridge there, by the Lionsgate Bridge there.
Yeah, you have a visitor behind you.
Yeah, West. What mall was that again?
I've never been.
Anyways, I know which one you're talking about.
But anyways, there's a shopping mall there, and so we met up there. And as we're going down Upper Levels Highway, I'm looking out of the front seat window of the car I'm in, and there's one car behind us. So there's a group of three behind and a group of three in the one that I'm with. And I'm looking out and I'm looking back towards where Cypress is, and I see two lights, two round white orbs. And they seem to be basically synchronized with each other. And all of a sudden they're moving across the highway. And as I'm looking up, I said to Lloyd, Lloyd, there's a UFO, pull over. And he doesn't see it. Well, the lady behind me by the name of Helen says, yeah, I think I see it too. And I'm watching this, and it's moved across the highway, and all of a sudden a third white light appears. Now I realize this is the classical triangular spacecraft that everybody's talked about. And I'm watching this, and I can't see any structure to it, just the lights. And then all of a sudden a red light appears almost in the center, but slightly offsetted towards the back.
Just like they say. Yeah.
And it's very much like what's on my business card. Yeah. That logo there. That's where it came from. So basically, it's moving. It's moving in tandem with our vehicles, and it moves across the road. And I said, Lloyd, pull over. I see a UFO. And he's still driving, and I'm winding down the window, and he says to me, well, if you're hot, wind up the window, I'll turn on the air conditioning. I looked at him, and I thought, he doesn't get it. He doesn't hear what I said. I said, Lloyd, pull the bloody car over. There is a UFO right in front of us up in the sky. And he's cranking his head, trying to look out the window as he's driving, and he finally pulls over on this triangular craft, which now has this red light on, and I start to see a bit of structure underneath it. But it's very bright, the outline is not really distinguishable from the bright light, so it's very hard to see. And now it's moving in the reverse direction from which we were watching it, heading out over towards Vancouver Island. And so I said to Lloyd, follow that UFO. So we're driving down the road, and I said, take the next right, and we take the next right, and still trying to keep an eye on this UFO, right? And then I said, okay, take another right, and we take another right, because now it's moving right, not would be towards Nanaimo, but I guess what would look like it would be towards Courtney and Campbell River. I think that's the direction it was traveling, and I figured out why it was doing that. But anyways, we got to a cul-de-sac. We couldn't go anywhere. And all we could see now was two white lights and a little red light in the middle of it, moving off in the distance, right? And so we turn around, we go back down the road, we go to the restaurant, and these two young ladies also came with us, so we had a chance to talk to them as well. But I said to each one of them, I wanted to get their first impression, and I want each one of them to come outside with me, and I want to hear what you thought you saw.
Separately. Yeah.
Separately. I didn't want anybody sharing stories. Though they may have done that where they were inside, so I don't know. But everybody saw the same thing. A triangular-shaped object had two lights first, then it had a third white light, and then a red light, and then it moved off away in the opposite direction. The only person that had a slightly different version of what she saw was Roxanne, and she said she saw a boomerang shape. And I thought, close enough.
Yeah, it's pretty,
close enough. And then I talked to Lloyd, and for some reason I picked him last, and I said, so tell me what you saw. And he said, I saw this after you pointed it out, but I didn't see anything at first. And I said, well, why did you ask me to roll up the window, and that you turn on the air conditioning? And he said to me, I never said that. And
wow.
I looked at him and I thought, okay, he's got a sense of humor. I thought he was going to be pulling my leg. And I said, yes, you did. He said, no, I didn't. And I looked at him and I said, yes, you did. No, I didn't. I was thinking it. He's the only one I've ever had a telepathic communication that was so concise, so accurate, and yet he said nothing. He says, I was thinking about that. Well, that freaked him out. And later on, when he drove me home, we sat in the driveway, and for a good hour or more, we talked. And he was telling me his whole life story. And for reasons why I didn't understand at the time. And when I asked him maybe 3 or 5 months later, I said, you remember that time when we saw that UFO? And he said, yeah. And that when we parked, he says, well, I figured if you read my mind, you probably knew everything already, so I thought I better come clean. So I said to him, no, Lloyd, I'm not a mind reader. And I said, I think that was a one of, I don't know if that would ever happen again, but I know the reality exists for it. But the thing is, what happened there was I so much wanted for him to see this, that there was a connection. And I believe part of that connection was due to the ETs, that possibly, and I speculate at this, that they were maybe putting out some kind of magnetic field or some high resonance of awareness around us. And that's why we were able to communicate through mental telepathy. Even to the point that collectively there was a form of telepathy going on where people were reacting and seeing the same thing at the same time, even though we're in two different cars. And so I think this is some of the high strangeness that goes on. Now, that's one event, and I wish you had been there because I think it would have really been something.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember if I was, if that's one of the ones that I missed, because I definitely remember meeting you guys and talking about some pretty intense sightings that I had missed. So maybe that's the one.
Yeah, it might have been after that. I mean, I think this was it was October 14th, I think it was 95.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that from 93 to 95, we were really trying to get our legs, as it were.
Yeah.
And we were trying to sort of get up and not just walk, but run, because we wanted to embrace this whole CE5 initiative.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things that we were doing. Now, there were other events that happened. And what I have found out is that if the media is involved, sometimes those could be some of the best outings we've had. Other times when the weather is miserable and it's raining and it's damp or cool or a little bit on the chilly side, we still have had ET interactions. When we've gone out to one of the sites close to where I live, there was, I think, 3 or 4 of us that were there. We played the beeps and tones on a Ghetto Blaster cassette. And as it was playing, this was for our first meditation. It was very cool. It was roughly around February 12th or 14th in that time frame. And winter was still sort of losing its grip, but the insects were not out at that time. The weather had dropped. We were bundled up except for our faces and our hands.
Mm-hmm.
We were sitting there, and we're listening to this recording of Dr. Greer's actually, it was his meditation. And as we're listening with our eyes closed, all of a sudden he's talking, he's going, blah, 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 you know. And I thought, what the, you know, and I thought, okay, it's the batteries are dying, right? No, the batteries were perfectly fine. It was the ETs that were playing with the Ghetto Blaster. And as we sat there and we meditated, everybody started getting the sensation that little insects were landing on us. And they were wherever our skin was bare, whether it was on our hands or on our face, there was these little light touches. And we thought there were mosquitoes or something landing on us, but there wasn't anything, and nobody was getting any bites. And when we finished the meditation, I said to anybody, and we do this all the time, by the way, I forgot to include this, that when we do a meditation, after we do it, we then discuss subjectively any acquired information, mm-hmm. because some people will have insights, and this is a time to share those insights. So I asked that question, and everybody said, I felt like I was being touched. It felt like insects were all over my body. And we realized there were no insects. It was too cold. And even on a hot day, and when the weather cools down, if there's a lot of insect activity, they'll disappear at a certain point in the night, and they're gone. Well, what we realized was these were ETs that were touching us. They were letting us know they were there. Now, again, it's a learning curve, because if you're not used to something, you have to start to pay attention to what is happening in your environment and what is happening around you and with you and in you. A feeling, a sensation, a smell, a fragrance, a compression of sound, all of these high strangeness things will start to occur. At least some of them will. Well, as I was asking this and trying to also explain what I was feeling, I could hear a beep, 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 beep. And I said to the other people, do you hear that? They said, hear what? I said, do you hear the beeping noise? I said, it was just over here. And as I'm talking, it's moving across the group, right through the group. I said, it's right there. And they turned around and looked, and I said, we see nothing. I said, what are you listening to? I said, I'm hearing a beep, beep, or a click, click. What would they call it? It was actually more of a click, and it was sort of, it's been referred to as a metallic cricket. Okay, so have you ever had one of those little clicky toys that has a piece of metal, and you kind of push on it and it goes click, 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 click. Mm-hmm. It made that kind of a noise.
Like a bottle top?
Huh?
I know, like, when those like Lipton iced teas and stuff, you can kind of bend the lid of it a certain way, and it does that.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of noise. But unfortunately, only I could hear it. Now, what that said, and I thought I was losing my mind at that point, because I thought if I could hear it and everybody else could hear it, but they're not hearing it, what's happening, right? Again, you see, I'm learning this stuff too, right? I'm coming in there as a baby, basically learning what's going on, and the parent is teaching me. And that's really what ETs are like in a sense to humans. Yeah, there are some very intelligent humans, but a lot of us are still in the adolescent or childlike years that we are slowly learning that there's more to this physical realm of existence than the physicality, that there is actual all kinds of other realms of intellectual, conscious, and psychic levels.
Yeah.
And so what happens is these ETs, we're establishing a communication in a physical form, though you could not see them, though we may be able to feel them or even hear them. They were letting us know they were there. So that was a very significant event for us and a learning curve. And consequently, one of the people that was there was Deborah Warren. Deborah Warren went off, and she's a school teacher, and she moved into the Okanagan in Kelowna, and she started up her own CSETI group out there called the Okanagan CSETI, or CSETI.
Mm-hmm.
And so she started up her group, and she's had various levels of success as well. So again, it's got nothing to do with the individual per se, but rather the individuals that participate in it. As I said, the more people of like-mindedness who do this, the greater the success rate of interaction and engagement by ETs.
So do you put a lot of those experiences in your book that might be coming out?
Some of them will be in the book, yeah.
Okay.
Like I haven't yet got a website, and I'm going to get one up there. If you guys are good at doing websites, I'd really like a hand. But we do have one of sorts, but it's my partner has one up that she's put up herself, and it's a little bit on the crude side. It's still evolving, but it's a place where people can go and find out a little bit about CSETI. Mm-hmm. When I get mine going, it will dovetail right off of Dr. Greer's, because I'm calling it CSETIVancouver.org.
Yeah. So, okay, go ahead.
And so it will be up there. But if you go to CSETI.org, which is Dr. Greer's, and look under membership papers and reports, you'll find Vancouver in there. And I've got a number of years of reports that I've been sending in there. Now, I haven't sent any since the late 90s. Basically, I think 97 or 98 is probably the last ones I sent to him, because when Sherry passed away, she used to put a lot of that stuff up on the internet. And so the thing is, because nobody else has taken up the reins to follow in her footsteps to do that, consequently, whatever goes up there now is more of the reports that come from the senior team, which is Dr. Greer's team.
Yeah.
And but the thing is that there are reports from Vancouver. Now, some of them will eventually be in the book. Some of them, I'm hoping all of them will be on my website when I get it up and going.
Yeah.
The other thing is that there's all kinds of different things that have happened with CSETI Vancouver in the early years. And as I say, we've been around since 93 operating. And Dr. Greer's CSETI group was only operating for maybe since 1990. So we're really almost right there with them at the time. Mm-hmm. I think there was one other group that was in Montreal, but I don't know if it still exists. It's pretty much, I think, there's one that started up recently, but it's not the same group. And so I think they pretty much packed it in, but ours has been consistently operating since that first time.
Yeah.
And And then, as I say, on occasions, I've had the chance to go down and meet up with Dr. Greer in Crestone, Colorado, and formally make that connection with him.
Yeah. So because what I remember from back then too is you guys were talking about the disclosure movement. Like that was, that was underway. And that's one of the things that kind of impressed me when I started getting back into UFOs in mid 2000s or whatever, or later than that even, is that all that stuff that you guys talked about, you did, right? They followed through with the disclosure movement, and you know, who knows how it's going to be seen in the future and what kind of effect it had on ufology and our culture. It was definitely a plan that was put in place and happened. So, but I do want to ask you, Terry, because I end up kind of defending CSETI and Greer amongst some of our you know, in our conversations, or even CSETI in the greater UFO culture seems to get a bad rap. Like, and you must be thinking about this a little bit, coming out with a book, maybe putting it out there. Like why do you think CSETI has a rough road, even amongst other ufologists? Well,
you know, that's, I think, one of the things that happens. Excuse me. One of the things that happens with almost anybody that's out there in the UFO community, even organizations. I mean, I belonged to one of the oldest organizations in the world at the time when I first got involved as a kid, a young teenager back in, I think, 93. I belonged to APRO. And APRO is the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization. And it was actually one of the largest ones. And it was made up of all the intellectuals, as they would say. Not that made me an intellectual, but it attracted that type of person. There was another one called NICAP, which is the National Investigation Committee on Aerial Phenomena.
Yeah.
And that was headed by Donald Kehoe. The other one that was headed by Carl Lorenza, and I can't remember the other person's name, but it was Mr. and Mrs. Lorenza, and that was APRO. NICAP was made up of all the military people and other people who were interested. And unfortunately, what happened was those groups fell apart. Mm-hmm. They were actually attacked by intelligence agencies, operatives working within the groups, who essentially gained control and then just pulled the group apart. And so they became defunct. Now, the point here is that when that happens, this is an indication of malevolence, that there's a genuine need to suppress information. Dr. Greer gets this all the time. The intelligence community puts out a lot of disinformation, misinformation as well. And what happens is the general public picks up on this, and sometimes it comes in a book, sometimes it comes on a DVD, sometimes it's in a lecture, it's in a TV program, a movie, etc., etc. And what it is you buy into the Kool-Aid, okay? And that Kool-Aid isn't necessarily good for you, that it is potentially poison. And the problem is it's poison with disinformation. So you take a piece of truth that can be substantiated, and you take another piece of truth from the UFO phenomena that can be substantiated. And then you take something that is unsubstantiated, that's basically a lie, and you put it between the two.
Yeah.
Now the problem is what's true and what's false. Classic point is the abductions. This is the one problem area in the UFO community that they haven't yet got their heads wrapped around on, because when you're doing investigations of any kind, and particularly when you're researching, as I have been doing, and as anybody who's writing a book or talking to people, is you've got to ask the right questions. If you don't ask the right questions, you don't get the right. If you don't ask the right questions, you don't get the right answers, right? So the thing is, if you accept the abduction phenomena, or if you accept the cattle mutilation phenomena that's going on, and they all point to ETs as being the culprits behind it, well, then that's your takeaway. That's what you are going to be basing everything on. So now all of a sudden there are good ETs and there are bad ETs. And the bad ones come in your bedroom late at night and they'll haul you out of your bedroom either physically or take out your astral body out through the ceiling or the window and on board their craft, where they can do all kinds of medical procedures on you. Now you're going to ask yourself, look, I'm an ET and I've come 1,000 light years just to shove a probe up your ass. Give me a break. I mean, that's not what they're here for. If you want to find out about humans, go to our cemeteries. Go dig them up. If you don't want to dig them up, go to our medical labs where all the cadavers are in the cooler. You can find out anything you want to know about a human being from a cadaver. You don't need a live specimen. Or they say, well, wait a minute, they're taking samples of semen and sperm and DNA and all the rest of it. They're cloning. They're
hybridization program and all that.
Yes, all of this stuff. And the biggest supporters of this are Dr. Jacob and the late Bud Hopkins. I spoke to Bud Hopkins about it a little bit. I didn't get a chance to really engage him because he was off. He was going to go somewhere, but essentially he and John Mack was the other one, the psychologist. Now he probably had a little more
balanced view,
and he probably had a little more investigation. And I think down the road he was changing his whole point of view on the abduction phenomena. But initially he started off that way. But Dr. Jacobs. And I'm just trying to look at the library over here with his book, and I got one of his books. But anyways, he's one, along with Bud Hopkins, that promoted this idea that ETs were gray, that they were really Zeta Reticulum from the star system reticuli, and that they were gray with big heads and almond-shaped eyes and skinny little bodies and arms and legs, etc. And they were essentially abducting people. Now, what most people don't realize is that when we go back to the period of 1947, and even earlier during the war, there were other crash retrieval programs going on, but they weren't really talked about, and the clamp of secrecy went down on them pretty hard, so that nobody really knew what exactly was happening. And to be honest with you, even the military didn't really know what they had in their possession in terms of technology. It wasn't until around 47 that inadvertently somebody spilled the beans of the Army has a flying saucer in its possession. And then a few days later, they dismissed it and said, no, we made a mistake. It was a balloon. But in actuality, they had recovered an extraterrestrial vehicle. And probably two, not just one, but two, because they believe now there was two crashes, and not the one there was one on the Mac Brazel farm back in 47, and that was where all the scattered debris was all over the place. But that was only a portion of what they found. The main craft was a few miles further away in a little gully or arroyo where there were bodies there. And then the other one was in St. Augustine, miles further away, and that was the second crash. Now, the thing is that both crashes were retrieved, and the bodies were retrieved. And a huge military cordon area of that area, which was around Roswell, and it was like a big triangular area. And if you were trying to drive into a certain area, you didn't matter where you went, for about 125 miles in that area, you couldn't get in. That's how big an area they cordoned off. Now, the thing is, they took that craft back and they went to work and basically threw a Manhattan style type program at it to reverse engineer it. But what they don't talk a lot about was what they did with the bodies. The fact was they were doing the same thing in understanding the DNA of the extraterrestrials. And a lot of DNA engineering and manipulation was going on at that time. You also have to understand that after the Second World War, the United States basically had gotten hold of a lot of German Nazi technology, as well as 1,500 of their best scientists.
So you're gonna get into how this overlaps with abduction, or how this leads to abduction.
What it is that the DNA engineering and manipulation of alien DNA, they were able to clone extraterrestrials, and I talk about this in my book, and that I believe, this is my theory,
okay,
and that is that the cattle mutilations that are being found, particularly in New Mexico, Colorado, and the Midwest states, where they're finding missing uteruses and sex organs and tongues and parts of the face are missing and that sort of thing, and holes in the abdomen. What they're doing is, this is military. They're being able to leap ahead and disguise helicopters to look like UFOs using a holographic projection. What they do is they fly over the cattle ranches, shoot an ultraviolet paint ball at one of the cattle that they're interested, which can only be seen with ultraviolet light. So in the daytime, you don't see anything. At nighttime, it shows up like a glow-in-the-dark type of sticker, right? They come back in stealth mode, either a stealth helicopter or a stealth helicopter that looks like a UFO, and they drop the hoists down, pull up the cow, take off to some nearby area, and most of these bases are usually within 50 miles. And 50 miles in a helicopter is nothing. It's like a few minutes. So all this can be done all in one evening. Then they go back, drop the cow back down roughly in the area where it came from, and fly off again. Maybe in a tree, maybe on a fence. Exactly. Now, what they've done is they've taken the DNA. I believe this is what they're doing. They've taken the cattle DNA, which is similar to humans, by the way, and they then use this DNA and they merge it by splicing it in with alien DNA. And there's probably a little bit of human DNA in all of that. And what they do is they create a programmable life form, PLF. Okay,
that's the grays,
and the PLF looks like the typical gray. And there have been a number of cases where these things have shown up, and they do not behave in the traditional ET fashion. They have an agenda, and the agenda is to take some of your DNA. You know, and if you start asking the question, why are they doing that? It's not for the most obvious reasons, which is they're trying to create hybrids of themselves, and you get these humanoids that look human, but they also look like gray. That could be a part of that as well. And some of that is being deliberately done by the military-industrial complex. And so what you're getting, therefore, is some very good representations or reproductions of these alien life forms that look and behave like grays. Now you've reversed engineered their craft. You've actually duplicated it, and made a number of them. Now you can put your ETs on board the craft. They go off and they fly out and do the missions, come back in. Everybody says, oh, I just saw a UFO. And it did this and it did that. Oh, and I saw some ETs. And yeah, they took this piece, they took this cattle or this cow and they dropped it back later. Yes, because that's what they want you to believe. And these are what I call terrestrial extraterrestrials. They're manufactured here on Earth.
Okay.
And I got the proof for that. I can prove that cloning has been going on not only recently in recent times, but it's thousands of years old. And the simplest form of it is taking the best of an animal and mating it with the best of another animal to get a bigger, better animal, right? Cattle at one time were no bigger than pigs. But through proper mating, you can get a nice big Jersey or heifer or whatever and lots of steak on them, right? Pigs, I've seen pigs now that I didn't know even existed, but that they're the size of cows. They're huge. And that's through natural reproduction. Now, what they've been able to do, when I was a young man, back in the 60s, they actually cloned a monkey, a rhesus monkey. And I actually remember the article, and I think I was living either in Ontario or had just moved out into BC. And I clipped out the article and I found it. And I've also found it on the internet, but it's not widely distributed, so you got to look for it. They cloned a rhesus monkey. And then they just hushed it all away. Mm-hmm. The next time you heard about cloning was from Dolly the sheep.
Yeah.
So Dolly the sheep was another experiment that they came up with. And that was through one type of cloning process. The next level of cloning is to take the DNA of two divergent species and merge them together to get something from it. And they're taking the DNA of a goat and the DNA of a silk spider, put them together, put them in intrauterine into the goat. And when you and the next level of breeding, the goat is born, and when the goat develops to maturity, you milk the goat, and you can extract the silk out of the milk.
Huh.
That's from that type of cloning. Now, this brings up a lot of interesting things.
Yeah.
For instance, the chupacabra.
Chupacabra.
Yeah, chupacabra. Because they don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Right? And you see all kinds of things on the internet. Oh, I think I just killed the chupacabra. When in fact, what it is a mangy coyote that's lost all its hair.
Yeah.
Right? Whoever puts this out is either deliberately doing it and is stupid and ignorant, or they're doing it to try and fool people. But the fact is that when you hear what the descriptions are, this sounds like something that's been created in a laboratory.
Yeah.
That's escaped. And somehow it's not just one or two, but a number of them have gotten loose. And I use the word loose with quotations because I think some of them are deliberately being let loose into the environment. Puerto Rico is one place where that all occurred. And there's a lot of scientists and ufologists that went down to investigate that. Another thing that cloning has created, you can take, they've now developed pigs that glow in the dark. And what they do is they take the DNA.
Bacon.
Glow in the dark bacon.
You need bacon in the dark.
But apparently, you take the DNA of a jellyfish, a particular type of jellyfish that has luminescence, and you can inject that into a living pig, or through the breeding of that pig, produce piglets that will essentially glow in the dark with some form of either ultraviolet or naturally. And just the other day, I saw a glow-in-the-dark kitty cat.
Ah.
So, when people say cloning hasn't gotten very far, they're either very ignorant or they're not telling you the truth, because it's leaped across all kinds of boundaries. And I believe, again, this is part of my belief, is that Dr. David Suzuki, one of the reasons why he got out of geneticism was because he's a very ethical, moral man, and he didn't like the direction in which it was going. And I believe it was going into areas that was tampering with other life forms that were creating these new forms that never existed on the planet before.
Okay.
Something seems kind of fucked up about a glow-in-the-dark pig, too, actually, looking at the picture.
Yeah.
Something seems unnatural about that.
Yeah, they have glow-in-the-dark goldfish as well. But you should look up the one glow-in-the-dark kitty cat, or glow-in-the-dark kitten.
Okay, I want to get back to another part of the abduction thing. So that's what you think explains the normal abduction phenomena. And then we have the MyLab abduction phenomena, which is that like just a different faction of another secret group, sort of?
Yeah, you got many factions who got their own interests, their own agendas, and some of them work together, some of them don't. Some of them may work together but don't agree with each other,
right?
And so they go off and do their own thing. And so you get these military abductions, particularly when somebody who has had a legitimate ET experience that's encountered an ET,
right?
And it's been very positive for them. So then they come, the military black ops swoop in with their black helicopters, create another scenario of an abduction. Now they create a negative situation that produces a negative mindset in the person, and then they're returned back to their homes. What happens is that person then wakes up and says, I've got marks in my body from this and that, and that the experience was awful. And so what happens is this produces the mindset that runs rampant throughout ufology, and that is certain ETs are hostile, certain ETs are malevolent, and they're not. Because how do you explain, for instance, that there are groups of us who go out, sometimes in the hundreds, and I had been a part of a group that was 200 people, and we had all kinds of UFOs show up, and not one of us is missing time. Not one of us has a scoop mark or some marks on us. Not one of us has had a medical
probe up the ass
on it, and none of us are missing time, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, what it is that how do you explain groups of people having something positive while others are having something negative? It's because that what is happening to those people, and particularly in the United States, but now it's spreading out into other countries that are associated with the United States in its foreign policies. You see, you got to dig deep for this information to make any sense out of it. But when you start to find out who's a friendly nation, who goes along with what America does, then these are the ones that have these types of negative alien encounters, because they're taking some of this technology and throwing it onto their own people, confuse them. And there's a reason for that. And the reason for it is because the military-industrial complex, and that's really a name to cover what they call the cabal or the Majestic 12 or MJ12, or it's the wealthy corporate industrial elite. It's all fits that parameter, right?
Yeah.
And basically, what it is that there is a powerful group of people who control all this information, and it's like a handful of people. When you compare it to the number of people on the planet, it's literally a small handful of people that know what's going on.
Like a couple hundred in the grand scheme of things.
It's like the wealthy families and businesses of the world. Yeah. They're the ones that control all of this. And what it is they control the resources, the finances,
the media,
they control politics, they control media, and now they're controlling, and this is the thing that I'm really upset with, they control some of this alien technology.
Yeah, like the secret space program. Basically, they're responsible for that.
Exactly. And they're the ones behind it. And the reason for it is because they're breaking away from the rest of the world. It's a breakaway civilization or a breakaway society where they suddenly move in a different direction from the rest of the world, but they still have reliance upon the world in which they live. Yeah. And so they still want to control it. If you watch the movie Elysium,
Yeah, we talked about that on our.
That's what that's about. That's the whole nature.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, you get to see a movie that isn't so off the wall as it appears to be, and it's actually revealing and telling you some inside information if you pay attention to it. A lot of people say, no, it's nothing. How can you pull that out of something that's fictional?
Well, the best way to discredit something is to make a movie of it. So then it's just myth and fiction at that point. Nobody will believe it's actually happening.
And the best way to hide something is in plain sight.
Yeah.
So that when you see it, you won't recognize it.
That's
the whole point behind this. So military abductions, which is my labs, is a military covert operation. But it may also use some of the ET programmable life assets to do this. Yeah. Okay? So the thing is, when you ask the questions like, well, if ETs have been here for a long time, like thousands of years, how come they haven't taken over the planet back then when we were nothing more than cavemen? Yeah. Or when we were still throwing, our best weapons were arrows and spears, right? And maybe catapults. That was it. That was our best technical advancement. That would have been easy pickings for any advanced technology to come in and take over a planet. But they never did. But they were around because history records their presence. They may have actually influenced us, but they don't seem to have influenced us so negatively. When you look, and you have to be very careful, when you look at what man does, it's usually in opposition to what I call divine spiritual teachings. If you do the opposite, you create problems. Mm-hmm. You do what is asked of you, you don't have problems.
Right.
Okay, so if ETs are there, do you think that they're really guiding humanity and saying, let's make sure humanity is constantly at war, and let's make sure that they do things so that they really don't get very far? Well, wait a minute. Why are you wanting to do that when you got a very simple civilization that bearskins and knives and spears is the best we've got? That's controllable. You can do anything that you want at that point. Now, are they benevolent to the point that they're here to eat us for lunch? They would have done so already. And they haven't. They're not here for that. In fact, there's nothing here on this planet that they want from us. Why? Because if you can get from the farthest reaches of the universe to here, or even the closest, which is maybe a few hundred light years to here, then you've got a technology and a civilization so advanced that material resources is not really a factor. In fact, all the resources you need are probably within your home planet and not on some other star system. In fact, I'll go one step further, saying their technology is so far advanced that they can produce this literally out of nothingness. Mm-hmm. What I mean by that is you have an idea, you have a thought, you have an idea, you have a concept. It goes from the ideation to the causation to the physical realm of existence. And when you have people who use their minds, maybe hooked up with some machinery that interfaces with that, the technology, conscious-assisted technology or technology-assisted consciousness, you can produce the stuff. So when you actually analyze what is all of physicality around us, it's nothing more than energy. The fact is that at some point it interfaces and merges in a matrix. And at that point of convergence, a physical particle comes into being. But actually, it's not a physical particle. You look at that and you find out that it's made up of atoms and quarks and charms and upness and downness and strangeness and all these quantum particles, that what you're really looking at is energy. There's nothing there. Mm. Yeah. So then you start to ask all these questions. Well, then how does that all come into being? Certain resonance and frequencies bring it all together. And when it comes together, it forms a pattern of physicality. Could be a human, could be a glass of water, could be a TV monitor, etc. How are we doing for time, by the way, guys?
We're doing pretty good. We're starting to run out. And there's so much more to talk about. So I haven't
touched the book yet.
I know. But you are touching the book because I'm sure a lot of this is in the book.
Some of it is in the book.
You're kind of just about to get into like the holograph universe and stuff like that. So I do have a quick question about abductions before we go too much further. So how do you explain then the overlap or the parallel between people who see or experience entities on DMT or psychedelics? Because, there are some parallels there.
Well, having never done that, that aspect of using psychotropic drugs, it's kind of hard to speak on it.
Yeah.
But the fact is, what is drug-induced illusions and what is personal psychological delusions is really a hard thing to determine, because people claim, and I think some of them rightfully so, that they have seen beings and creatures and of one sort or another, even paranormal type beings of some kind. Because you're using a drug, then you really have no way of knowing what's real and what isn't. And I say to people, look, the best drug in life is the one that's natural, that's God-given, that's something you can do for yourself and that you don't have to imbibe in order to get an experience from. In other words, the best experience is right between your ears. And if you utilize it and understand how to say meditate, for instance, you can have all those experiences that people who use the psychotropic drugs claim to have. Don't forget that in the military-industrial complex, there's layers of control and suppression of memory that they use. Psychotropic drugs is one of them. Hypnosis is one of them. Sensory deprivation is another. A mind altering implants with chips and the like can do it. Certain microwave beams that you constantly aim at somebody repeatedly over and over and over again, particularly during their sleep, will induce all of that.
Yeah, and we make DMT out of our own body, apparently. So who knows what's being triggered and how. There's got to be some parallels there with people seeing beings.
And the thing is, I can't speak to it because I really don't know enough about it. But the thing is, I never put down somebody's experience that they had because it's real to them. And that's the whole point behind it. If they've had a real experience, who am I to come in and tell you that what you saw wasn't what you saw, that what you experienced was this? I can't say that because I wasn't there. And so to try and see through the eyes of another means trying to understand what somebody is saying to you. You can ask all the pertinent questions you want, and hopefully from that elicit a more factual piece of information. But at the end of it, it's still that person's experience.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's get into your book there before we run out of time. So you have been working on this textbook type book for 5 years now. And I don't know how you're going to get it published because it's probably too thick to be published. But do you want to talk a bit about that?
Well, I've always been meaning to do this, even probably back at the time when I met you and started getting involved in CSETI, because I've accumulated quite a few books over the years on the UFO subject. And as I got into it, I started to realize that there were certain pieces of information that I felt were not factual or that I had some disagreement with. And I thought it may be time for me to start sitting down and actually putting something together. And I think the fact was that I had read most of Dr. Greer's books that he had put out at the time. And a lot of what he put out, I wholeheartedly agreed with. There wasn't too much there that I disagreed. But I also felt that more could be said. And so I started working on this about 5 years ago, or actually it will be about 5 years this month. And I figured that after approximately 60 years of living, I had enough information in my head accumulated on my bookshelves and in my DVD collection that I could sit down and put something together. So what I thought I'd do is put down a compendium of everything you wanted to know about ETs and UFOs, and give it right from the basis of knowing nothing, how to go out and recognize conventionality, things that fly around us all the time, even when it flies in unusual ways, how to identify atmospheric phenomena, astronomical phenomena, different types of aircraft, Japanese lanterns and balloons and you name it. And so basically it goes from that point, and then I get into the antiquity and the history of the subject and talk about the religious aspects of it. It is as you said earlier, it's an encyclopedia of information. It's 2,500 pages long.
That's already, that could be
easily five books.
500-page volumes.
Yeah, easily. Yeah. And I'm thinking, how do I mass market this? Nobody's going to buy a big book unless they special order it, right? And I'm willing to do it too. I'm going to put my book, I'm going to put it together. Probably I'll either print it out myself, go to somebody and get it printed up, and that will be my book. But if I'm going to do this, I'll probably break it down into about 5 volumes minimum. And essentially what I'm calling it is the UFO and ET Rosetta Stone, the treatise on extraterrestrial, the treatise on UFO, unidentified flying objects and extraterrestrial phenomena, the nature and reality of visitation, ET visitations to the Earth. Now, that's all a mouthful. But the thing is, it's something like that. It's something like that. But essentially, it's the UFO and ET Rosetta Stone. And the Rosetta Stone is essentially, if you remember, it is a block of granite or something very similar to it, where 3 different types of writing are written on it. One is a common day Egyptian, the other language is hieroglyphic Egyptian, and the third is Greek. Mm-hmm. And what the person who found it was able to realize it was all the same thing, because certain words were highlighted. And so he was able to deduce the translation of Egyptian language from that. Well, and what I've done is I've used this book in the same manner, that if you follow the thinking from basically knowing something that is interacting with us and looking at the history of that interaction, and you follow it up to present day and find out that who's got control of this, and it's the military-industrial complex, and how are they managing it, and how are they coercing their own military people to fall into line. How do the astronauts perceive it, and how they are forced to fall into line behind it. I go from there to looking beyond the Earth, what's in orbit, what's on the moon. There are actual, I would want a better word, I would call them cities on the moon. But some of them are on the dark side, and you can't see them. Some of them are on this side, but they're right along what they call the Terminator line, which is between light and darkness. And I go to Mars, and when we go to Mars, there's all kinds of artifacts. And they're said, we found water, we proved there's water, now we're looking for microbial life. I got news for you. It goes beyond microbial life. It goes to higher advanced intelligent life forms. And some of them may still be present.
That you've seen this through remote viewing and stuff?
No, I've actually have come across one of the NASA's raw images and looked it over, because Richard Hoagland put on his site that NASA goes apartment hunting. And that was his title for his paper. And I looked at it and read it, and I thought, okay, I'm going to look at some of the areas that he looked at. And I thought, I don't see what I can't see what he's seeing.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I thought, wait a minute, I better look harder. So I blew up the picture. And sure enough, I started to see what looked like parts of buildings, rebar, walls, blocks of stone. And as I looked carefully, I found a couple of humanoid heads, robotic heads, I believe, or a child's play toy head. And one is very obvious. The other one is lying on his side, and I've labeled them data. Richard Hoagland found one of the photographs on the moon, an alien artifact. It was a robotic head. They call it Data's Head, named after the Star Trek Next Generation episode, Data's Head. I have found Data's Head's brother, Lore, on Mars. And that's not the only thing I found. I found a box-like construction. I have also found a Martian body. Okay,
Nice.
think about that for a second. Not only are there fossils and bones of, like there's one place you go into and it looks like an animal boneyard, and you can pick out skeletons and pieces of bone and things that are similar to what we have here on Earth. And some people have already found humanoid skulls. Well, I've now come across what I believe to be a body lying beside two different types of animals, lying beside a piece of technology. And one part of that technology belongs to another piece of technology not too far away that could be his spaceship or land cruiser or whatever. And I thought somebody would have found this by now, and I sat on this for over a year. And I'm ready to spill my guts on it, because if I do, it's what we've all been looking for.
Well, you just spilled them.
I just did, yeah. And I thought when I saw this spot, I thought it was just another rock. And I was just about to move off the photo and look at another one. And then I thought, there's something there that looks familiar. And I went back and looked at it and blew it up. And sure enough, there's this humanoid body, head, torso, looks like an arm and some other parts. And then I went and looked up cadavers and corpses on the internet, and to find something that looks similar to it. Mm-hmm. Damn if I didn't find something that looks similar to it. And I thought, this is exactly what it looks like. So at some point, I've got to get it up on the internet to post it. I've already copyrighted it. I'm not telling anybody what soul day it comes from, but it's there if people want to go and plod through all the hundreds and thousands of pictures. But I know which day it comes from. And on top of that, there's other technology that I found and other structures on the moon. Not the moon, on Mars. So that's part of it. And all that says is that at some point in the past, probably as far back as 50 to 70 million years, there was a type 2 civilization in the solar system, and that we weren't the first. And we could very likely be the descendants of this group of people who lived on Mars, who traveled throughout the solar system, who traveled throughout the stars, and for some reason ended up on Earth. And there are actual structures on Mars that look very similar to structures on the Earth.
Huh. Yeah, that's good.
We're not alone. We never have been. Never have been.
So have you heard about this hexagon on Saturn at all?
Is that a new thing?
Have you seen? I just saw a picture of it. It looks really weird.
Yeah, I was looking at it today too. I think that's old news, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's old news. What it is hyperdimensional spatial geometry, and what it is that the North Pole, and even on the South Pole, because of the way the weather moves around on the planet, it forms a hyperdimensional geometric form, which is a hexagon. And actually, there's something similar on Earth, and actually it may be similar on all planets that have a weather pattern. Richard Hoagland predicted this. And actually, at 19.5 degrees, there is a spot on Saturn, not on Saturn. There's a weather pattern on Saturn at that latitude. Mm-hmm. And on Uranus, there's a spot. And on Neptune, there's a spot, both at those latitudes. And if you look at the Earth, there's a spot on the Earth that at that latitude, which is Hawaii, which is a vortex. And so you have to imagine
So it's good to live in these vortexes.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Because you have to imagine a sphere, and within that sphere are two pyramids. And they're four-sided, beg your pardon. 3 sides with a base. And one is sitting like somewhere around the North Pole, and the other one is inverted, it's sitting at the South Pole. And so when they merge together, the bases move past each other, and where they end up is at 19.5 degrees. That's the mystical number. 33 and 33 and a third is also cosine is also a hypothetical number, which is E equals. This is something that you have to read Hoagland's papers on this. He talks about the the constant E and its number. It's 33 and a third, I think it is, and or 19.5. There's two of these, and a lot of things that NASA does hinges are on these numbers.
Wow.
33.
33 is a magic number.
Yeah.
Or 19.5. The fact is that even some of the moons in our solar system may be artificial. And
I just finished a book that says that our moon might be artificial.
Yes, it's very possible. If it is, it's probably the largest moon that in our solar system that's artificial. There's one book out that you may not be able to get hold of. I mean, if you thought a 2,500 page book would be expensive, there's one that beats mine easily, and it's only about 150 pages. It's worth $2,500, and it's only 130 pages, but it's written by scientists. And it's called the Ring Makers of Saturn. And you can actually get it for free on the internet. And if you read through it, it explains, and I've got this in my book too, how the rings of Saturn are formed, how some of the moons are formed, why they're positioned where they are, and that the spaceships that form them are planetary size. Some of them are bigger than planets. There's one that they figured is about 25,000 kilometers in length, and you could stick a moon inside of it and fly off with it.
So the other thing that that you've coined, I guess, you were telling me when we were on the phone the other day, is the CE6 and 7. So you're taking it past CE5.
Oh yeah, I've taken it past. There's actually one fellow who's gone up to 12, but he can't prove the 12. In fact, he has difficulty on the 6 and the 7. I've actually could prove the 6 and the 7. The 6 is there was an incident back in 1991, which is, I believe, I have to dig out more information on it, but I'm pretty certain that it revolves around Story Musgrave. And he comes back and says that, yeah, there's life in the universe. But what he didn't tell you was that he met with it. And that NASA and their astronauts have been meeting with ETs probably on a regular basis when they go off into space. In fact, Clark McClellan, who was a former science operator,
CSO.
He was a science officer for various NASA projects and programs like Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, et cetera, the space shuttle. He saw on his video monitor in Cape Kennedy that one of the shuttle bay had its bay doors open. I believe it was Columbia, and he saw two astronauts conversing with a 9-foot tall being, each 9 feet tall, and it was standing in the middle of the cargo bay, and these two astronauts were tethered. And apparently, he said, I wasn't the only one to see it. I'd like to know who this other witness is, but apparently, his credentials are impeccable. He's well respected by other astronauts, and some of them are actually backing up his statements. And so that would be a CE6. In other words, you have to be an astronaut or a cosmonaut in order to engage in this, because you have to be off the Earth, in space, or on another planet, and where you're not only seeing ET craft, which would be similar to the CE1 to 6 or CE1 to 4 on Earth, but is now in space, and the actual contact, which would be regarded as a CE4 and 5, is now a CE6 because it's out in space. And that means that ETs are conversing and communicating and in contact with human beings. In fact, the ET that these two astronauts were conversing with, there was another one inside the spaceship, inside the shuttle. I think it was the shuttle. And I've heard that they've also been on board the International Space Station. The craft that this large being came from, apparently he didn't have all the backpack equipment on that the other astronauts had. He was tall, between 8 and 9 feet tall, and was relatively thinner in proportion, and his helmet was not as large as the human helmets. And his craft looked similar to a B-2 bomber, but little differently. If you go on there and Google 9-foot tall alien out in space, something like that, you'll get it. And you'll get Clark McClennan's account of that. And if you do a lot more research, you can pull out the story from different areas on the internet. I had to piece it together because some of it wasn't completely fleshed out from his website, because you have to buy his book. But I've already fleshed it out and found other references and things for it. But that's a CE6. A CE7 basically is when you communicate with extraterrestrials on an altered level of consciousness. And in fact, this is what we do when we go out and meditate underneath the stars. We're doing a physical CE5, but in the process, we're actually doing a CE7.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So there may be some issues around if that's a legitimate one or not, but this could be done anywhere. Okay, out in space, on Earth, wherever. The thing is, what you get is, and ideally the best way that it works is that you have to have a corroborating person or piece of evidence to confirm the intuitive information that you're getting.
Right. So is that like channeling then, or?
It may be. I put channeling into a gray basket, because I don't really know if it's a real thing that's happening or whether it's just a delusional thing that's happening. But the thing is that there may be some premises or some aspects of reality to it. But the thing is that when you are getting this information, and I think I may have experienced a CE7 when I was in Colorado and with Stephen Greer, and I was up in my bedroom and I was remote viewing, and I felt I was on board a spacecraft. And I was looking down at the ground, and what I saw was the great national sand dunes below. It was an image that I couldn't possibly have seen because I'd never flown over there. So how would I know that's what it was? And yet I was in the spacecraft. It was landing. It landed on the sand dunes. My consciousness moved away, and then I could see the spacecraft, and it was on a slight angle. And then I moved further away, and it was moving closer towards me. So I go downstairs. I have a debriefing with Dr. Greer and the rest of the other 30-plus people that are there. And he asked us if anybody did remote viewing, and I said, I did. And he said, would you like to tell us? So I told him that story, a lot more embellished, of course. And then another woman said, I had exactly the same remote view. Two people have the same remote view. Now, we felt that this was real concrete information. We went out that day thinking it was going to happen, but the events unfolded the second day. And sure enough, that craft came down. I was watching through my binoculars. It landed on the sand dunes. It was on a slight angle, and it developed some vapor or fog around it, and then it came closer to the group, and then it moved away. That was real information. So that, to me, is a CE7.
Do you think you were just seeing the future there? Like, was it more of a...
It was seeing the future. It was confirmed by a second person. The events unfolded as it did. I bilocated and I remote viewed. So there was about 4 or 5 different things that were going on. And it felt so real. Of all the things I've ever done in remote viewing, that was the most real. I felt I was there. And I thought, and yet I'm sitting in my bedroom.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, and I haven't taken any drugs. The most I had was coffee. Yeah. So that's, part of my experience.
Huh. Yeah, that's fascinating. So that's the CE7. A little different than the CE5. It's kind of more like an altered state of conscious contact.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I as I said, I have a lot of this that I could pull up and read it to you, but I figured it would just take up too much time.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think we've run out of time, but what I'd love to do is to do this again with you And I'll try and get more into the book because by then I should have really wrapped it up by then. I'm just going through some other details that I left out a few things, and I'm just filling in some holes. But essentially, the book is done.
Absolutely. We'd love to have you back. Yeah, we kind of flew through 2.5 hours there.
Yeah, I'm trying to cram in so much information, but I haven't even got started.
Yeah, it really does feel like I've got questions here I wanted to ask. It feels like we're just scratching the surface, but maybe what we'll do is we'll have you back when your book is out there and we can plug it and link to it. And
well, here's the thing. The book may not actually hit public mainstream for a while because, as one person pointed out to me, I have a lot of pictures, and the fact is that some of the pictures are probably copyrighted.
Oh, yeah.
And so to take those pictures out would probably destroy some of the content of what I'm trying to get across, because sometimes pictures speak louder than words. Some of them are my own pictures that I have rightfully found and used, and some are slightly altered, but only to try and take away some of the similarity from the original without destroying the actual evidence. It could be a border,
yeah.
Sort of thing, or highlighting as opposed to leaving it in the dark and trying to guess what you're looking at. But some of the other stuff, it may be copyrighted. The worst case scenario here is this. I would probably still try, if anybody's interested, I would sell it to them, but it would be more or less under the table. And they would have a very unique book, but it probably will not be cheap.
Right. Yeah.
And I can put it onto a DVD, a flash card. Ideally, what I want to do is to put it in a book form and include a DVD, because this book is like no other book. It's interactive.
Yeah.
In other words, you not only just read something, but you can go to the actual sources of where I got the information, and you can go to the video and watch the video. No other book, as far as I know, does that. And so that becomes a fairly interactive book, and you can't get it from just the book per se. In the pages, you have to have a DVD or a flash card to go with it that allows you the hyperlinks. And once you have
all the images,
oh yeah, then you're going to get the goodies for sure, right? All the pictures will be in the book, but the hyperlinks won't be. Although I'll have all of that listed, so if you want to type it all out onto your internet, you can go through it very slowly and you can eventually get to everything that I've been to. But if there's a DVD or a flash card with it, boom, it will take you there.
Yeah, that sounds good.
But the worst case scenario is if I can't sell it, I'll dump it on the internet.
Yeah, that always works.
And then watch the shit fly.
Hey, you never know. We've got a lot of people doing a value for value model now, right? Where people will pay for stuff, even if you put it out there, they'll donate, or they might pay for it if they think it's valuable. So that might be a way to go too. Yeah, I know one podcaster out of Montreal. He does philosophy. He puts his books on his site for free, and he gets a lot of donations. Yeah. He has a free model of his podcast and his books, and he makes a living off of donations. So
yeah, well, that's why I need a website.
Yeah.
Because then I can load that all up and put it on there. Yeah. I'm actually putting this. Actually, if you go to my Facebook account, which is CSETI Vancouver CSETI. CSETI Vancouver. Sorry.
Yeah.
Terry Tibando, and then you can go to CSETI Vancouver. You'll start to see some of the stuff I'm actually putting into the book on there. It's very minimal, but it's stuff that is new. And one of the things, you remember the Disclosure Project?
Yeah.
I've actually had Stephen Greer up here in Vancouver. I was the first one to do it in Canada. And but anyways, in his press club, National Press Club account of disclosure, he holds up a big blueprint of a man-made flying saucer. Mm-hmm. Remember that?
I don't remember that specifically.
Okay, watch his go to his website and look for that, and you'll see when they come to that section.
Yeah.
Mark McLennan.
Yeah.
Different person from Clark McLennan. Anyways, he holds up this great big. I have the photograph of the UFO.
Oh, okay.
Not only in black and white, I have the color.
Huh.
And that's something I don't know if Greer's got.
Yeah.
He probably does, but I'm surprised he didn't show it, because I would have shown it.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you ever thought of an Indiegogo or a Kickstarter to finalize your project?
No, but I'm obviously open to ideas, you know.
Yeah, well, I've bought a couple things off of Indiegogo, and people have raised money. They've surpassed their goals, some of them. I mean, I'm sure some of them haven't, but especially because you've done already 5 years of work and you have something tangible, it's a little easier than just an idea that you're asking for money from, right? If you can show them how close you are to your goal and what you want to do, it might be a good way to raise some money for that.
Yeah, I'll be looking at all those options for sure, and whatever people want to suggest to me, I'll look at it as well. I mean, I had some ideas of how I thought I would go about presenting this book. Ideally, the book, when I first wrote it and developed it, it is a textbook for me to use as a teaching tool to teach a night course for adult ed.
Right.
You know, an uncredited course that would probably run at least 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And essentially, it was to educate people on the subject and give them what I hope is the best information out there. I mean, I've literally gleaned a lot of information, and I've tried to tap into the best minds available, and the best writings and documents that they have, and given them full credit when I've used some of their text or some of their pages or whatever. So I will not alter that and put my name to it. If it's theirs, right? But it's in the book. And so I feel that as a textbook, I can do that.
Right.
With a picture, I may run into more problems with it. But the thing is that there may be ways to get around it, and I may have to start writing to some of these people to get their permission.
Yeah.
But if I do that, and I do get a lot of permission, then I will probably be able to go ahead and do a publishing on it.
Right.
And I'll do, like you say, break it up into 5 books. So it's a 5-volume, and I don't know, $50 a volume or something, you know?
Yeah. Well, either way, we'll have you back on to talk about it. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Terry. It was a great chat.
Well, I really enjoyed the time, and I didn't know how it was going to go, and I'm your smiling face there.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I'll look you up when I come back to Vancouver to visit, and maybe I can time it around a field trip or something.
All you have to do is, call me ahead of time, say I'm going to be in, and we'll get together, even if it's just for coffee and to talk, or maybe go out and do something. I'll rally the troops around.
Sure. Yeah, that's great.
Go summon some UFOs.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right on. Well, thanks a lot, Terry. It was great chat.
Darren, I really appreciate you allowing me the time to come on, and obviously we went beyond your.
That's okay. We have no time limits here in Grimerica, so.
All right. Well, take care, and all the best to you in all worlds.